Hey there, Scotty from Chernobyl Studios, and today we are going to look at some drum samples. Now, it's been a minute since I've looked at some drum samples on this channel. Today, we're going to look at the Jens Bogren drum samples. So let's just, play the demo track that I have here so you can hear them in action, and let's talk more about them. No surprise, they're awesome. They sound fantastic. Link for them is in below the description. It is an affiliate link, just to let you know. But yeah, just worth every single penny. Okay, so this is what we're looking at here. Now I have the deluxe version, but there's a couple things we need to really I need to touch on here. So this particular drum sample pack is different from other samples in that they're way more neutral sounding. And I actually have another session I'm going to show you where I'm using the TCI files with acoustic drums that I've edited, which I edited live on stream for one of my own personal projects. So basically, you are getting just the shells. So the kick, the snare, and then a multitude of different toms. There are no cymbals here. So you'll have to use a different drum sampler for cymbals. But like I say, with the drums being pretty natural sounding, they're going to fit in with practically any cymbal pack that you can think of. And as the TCIs go, you'll hear that they just blend in. They sound very natural, sound quite good. Okay, so if you're going to use the TCIs, it says right here, you're going to need Slate 2 because those are TCI files. If you get the deluxe version, you hit all the extra additional snare drum files, but I think you still get some wave files. And then the Kontakt instrument is if you're working with MIDI. However, if you're using Slate, you can still trigger MIDI notes from Slate into Slate, so you can still use the TCIs if you don't have Kontakt. So there's still a way to use these, even if you don't necessarily have Kontakt. It's not a big deal. But basically, 8 snares, 6 kids, 3 tom sets. Now, they all sound differently. We'll talk about them. I'm not a big fan of just playing the samples on the video here because someone can just clip them and basically steal the sample. So I'm not going to do them individually, but we can listen to them sort of in pieces. So the signature, and then with deluxe, you get all these extra kit pieces to include the MIDI instrument. But like I say, you do need full version of Kontakt 6. It's not a big deal though. Where these really shine again is just in the TCI format because they're really well programmed. It's not so, some of these drum samples that come out sometimes, it's like beep boop beep boop beep boop beep pop beep boop beep, and you can just tell like there's no continuity to what the samples are doing. These sound fantastic, especially at lower dynamic velocities, which I'll show you here. So this is the store page. You want to read more about it. You know who Jens Bogren is. He's also the same guy that did the Rainbows and Chainsaws IR pack with Acoustic and Kohle. Link to that also below. But yeah, these sound fantastic. So let's go and jump into the other session with the live acoustic drums, and I'll show you what these sound like. All right, here's the drum edit session. Actually edited these live on stream this previous Saturday, if you want to check that out. But anyway, I am using trigger on this all the kit pieces here, the shells. And just looking at this, I'm just using a single blend of what they're doing. And the cool thing is, actually, if we go to this view, let's just turn these off for now. Oop, leave that one on. So the drums themselves do not sound bad. This is the same drummer that I hired to play on Berserkir. And I was just doing the same thing that I always do when I edit, cleaning up some cymbal bleed and stuff like that. But here, the drums sound like this. Totally fine, nothing wrong with them at all. But I was like, okay, I want to try out these TCIs and see what they sound like. And I really like that it's not immediate like bam, here's just like some slam metal drum sounds for you. They still sound like I could do some work to them, even some compression and some sort of coloration if I felt like it. They don't sound already processed to the degree where like, okay, I can only do a little bit of EQ and then run them through the bus comp and that's kind of all I can do. So even with the overheads playing of the shells that were recorded, these just fall right in. And I feel like I may actually use these, maybe blend them into the original shells or something like that, because they just sound natural. They sound really nice. And for this particular project, or this song, I think I might go with a more natural sound instead of maybe a clicky click type of deal. But that's what the TCIs look like and how they function. And it's really simple. I mean, you load them in, go to the browser here. There they are. You can just 8 different types, and they have a blend, a dry, and a wet. Okay, I'm only going to play it once, but so people don't paste them out and steal them. But they sound great, and you can use, for example, what I like to do, or I love to do, a little trick here for snares is I will take a snare, for example, whatever, and I'll use the wet version of it, which is basically more of like the room sound, and I'll put that onto a snare and then kind of bring it up or lower it depending on how much more roominess or more I want to call it airiness. I'm really not sure if I'm using the right word, but just to put the snare more directly in space and make it more audible. So I love using wet TCI files for stuff like that. Included dry plus blend. It's great. You have a lot of options here and many different. I love the way it's classic. Maybe it's just Swedish humor. I don't know, but like blow me, ball slap, cheek slap. In a way, it does kind of let you know what the samples sound like, but they're just, it's cheeky, I guess. It's kind of funny. I kind of like the way these are named. All right. That's how the TCIs are. Let's actually jump into the previous session now, and I'll show you the Kontakt instruments, and we can listen to some of the sounds basically in the song. So as I showed previously, I'm making use of the Kontakt instruments here, simply because it's easier, like, to just, the bigger view here. It's easier to use Kontakt instrument here in this case because I can have them all loaded here. I don't have to route them all through a TCI plugin, which you can do if you don't have Kontakt. Not a big whoop, but it's just easier for me to show them to you and to work with them as MIDI in this in Kontakt here. Oops, yeah, okay. Let's get rid of the outputs too, so we don't really need to see all that stuff. There we go. Okay, so here are the sounds that I came up with, or not came up with, that I decided to use. Everything is processed right now, but we can still listen to how great the dynamics sound, which is what I really wanted to show off with this little snare section. Sounds great. Now I have a compressor. Maybe the compressor's kind of making it sound goofy. Let's turn off that. So it's really hard to get that kind of definition and realism in the lower dynamic ranges, because it seems like even though snares are one of the most programmed parts of a drum kit, as I've talked about in Metal Drum Programming Mastery, still somehow there's a range. There just seems to be a dead range. You know what I mean? Where you'll be like at 50, and then you go to 55 to 65 does nothing, and then 70 is like bam, we're up in here now, and it sounds way louder than it should. So sometimes you just kind of lose the control with that. I'm happy to say that I really like the way the snares react to the different velocities. Sound realistic. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I mean, it just sounds great. I mean, 127 sounds like a rim shot with the stick. I like it. And here, 110 sounds pretty realistic. So even like one or two velocity points, there's a difference in the articulation and how the snare sounds, which is unusual, because usually it's going to be in ranges of 10 to 15 where you're going to have just very subtle variations. But here you go to 113. You're already here at 115, 116. You're already hearing where the stick just seems to be hitting harder, or they're introducing a little more of the rim shot, and then 127 is exactly what it should sound like. Rim shot, but let's just make these like even more crazy. Some serious rim shots. Sounds like the dude is just piling right into it. Let's make these even lower. Look at listen. Yeah, sounds great. Really like these. I'm really impressed with these. I mean, just the way that Jens' drum sound is in particular, it's not ultra. I mean, they're processed, of course, but they're not ultra processy. These are very neutral and natural sounding, and they just have like a reaction, a feel to how these sound. That sounds completely like a legitimate rudiment. It sounds fantastic. Now, I'm not doing it in this song because it's too loud. Where are we? Well, what I just did there even sounds better. Maybe if we bring these down even more, maybe the velocities will be even better sounding. So bring these way down. Yeah, this sounds great. I really like the way this sounds. It just sounds so realistic. It's usually you'd have to use like a marching snare from an orchestral library to get this kind of definition. And the way the snare sounds in general just has that nice just buzziness to it that I really like. But there are so many different kicks here. I mean, sumo sub, cheek slap, ball slap. Let me disable my processing here, and then I'll solo the drums, and we can listen to some of the different things that are happening here. Toms, EQ, drums. Hope we solo now. See that you see like the kick and the snare and the toms almost have some of that mid, I don't want to say gauginess or the basketballiness, but it's in there and it needs to be taken out. And you can also hear that the snare can be compressed a little bit more than maybe other drum sample libraries where they're just already pegged. You know, you start using a compressor just a little bit, and it's like you're choking it. This sounds great. So let's listen to just a couple of different kick sounds, for example. So the different kicks, it's more than just like, oh, there's different processing. They already have like different sounds to them. You know, like some of them have very mid-range focus attack, very clicky sounding just in the way they sound. And some of them are kind of muted, more round. And that'll suit different styles. So if you're not just doing metal, or maybe you're doing some rock, and because these sound pretty neutral, and I don't want to say pretty neutral, yeah, that's what I want to say. They can fit right in with just a little bit of EQ and compression. You can get there. So same thing with the snare. Let's maybe go to, let's go to the blast section actually. I like this one, the ring job. Don't see the other word, because it has a ring to it. It's like, it's a pretty cool characteristic where, most snare samples are gonna like dig that ring out of it, so you don't have that. But here it's perfect. It's for everyone to listen to. Bong bong bong. I love it. So what do we have? We got numbered, right? Nice. Now the toms, I really want to say something about the toms that I really particularly liked. Let's bring the keyboard back, because I don't have a lot of tom parts here. The toms are great. There's a lot of different sounds. So that's the Reginald. You've got basically 4 different sets. So you basically got 2 sets of 2, and then a set of 3, a set of 4, and a set of 6. This is great, because I don't know how many times I've opened up a drum sample library or something like that, like, and there's only 3 toms, and it's like, and you want to have like the second floor tom because you want to do this cool section. You just really just lay into them somehow, or at least just have the choice of having a 4th tom, and it's not even there. So you can do 2 toms, 3 toms, 4, or 6, depending on what kind of project you're doing. And Helms Deep sound great. Just awesome. They sound thick and meaty. Awesome. I just love the way they sound. I went with Reginald actually, because for the song they sounded better. They just fit better into the riffs that I was writing, and they just sounded better for the sound that I had for the guitars. The Helms Deep had, I don't know, just weren't working, but I love them all on their own. It's fantastic. One thing I also want to point out here is when you load, as it is right now, they already know about this, and it's probably already been fixed by the time you see this video. If you go to load these into Kontakt, please be sure that the direct knob, it's not at +12, because they load in at +12 for some reason. So you got to walk this back to like -2.7 so they don't clip inside of Kontakt. Just keep that in mind. The other thing I really want to point out is that we have the MIDI button here. This is genius. I'm really happy that they worked this in, because when I loaded this instrument, I thought it would be like, tom 1, tom 2, tom 3. And then it's like, oh, you just load how many instances of toms that you want, and you can choose which one you want, and you can choose the key that you want it to trigger. So I was like, that's awesome, because there are lots of drum libraries that do this differently, that don't even make it easy for you to do a key mapping. Yeah, you can remap them, but usually you got to go to a different menu in the interface, and then you need to figure out, and the font is this big. This is right here. It's pretty clear this is going to go to F1, or I could just click the learn button and click or play the button that I want the tom to play at, and bam, there it is. Really easy to understand, very quick, and you can see straight away C1, D1, F, G, A. All easy and clear for me to understand. This is also important because when you're using a different symbol library, which you'll have to because these are only shells, you can make sure that you don't have any it's not conflicting with any of the symbols that you might need to use. So you don't, because this has happened, you know, where you'll get like shells and symbol packs and you try to use them together. Then you open up the mapping and you're horrified to find out that like 3 of the toms are exactly where some of your symbols need to be. So that can be a pain. Not so anymore. Pretty easy to work with. Very easy fix. Very happy with that. I mean, I really don't know what else to say other than that they sound fantastic. They were really easy to use. They were actually very inspiring because I really liked the more natural sound I was getting out of it. And for this particular song, like we put the processing back on, I mean that was exactly what I needed. I didn't need a really death metal-y or clicky or super. I mean, I don't want to say super modern because I mean I really don't want to say that these aren't modern because that's not what I'm trying to say. But you understand where I want to not get away from the typical drum sound that seems to be happening right now, where it's just a big snare explosion all the time. I do like about a little bit how reserved these sound, and in the song, it just sounds great. And I'm using the Easy Drummer Death Metal Easy X for cymbals here. And it literally sounds like they belong together. Like not even an issue. That's really good news because you can probably use any cymbal library and it'll be fine. All right, so let's talk a little bit about processing. Now, I've been saying that these drums are pretty natural and neutral sounding, which means you probably need to do a little bit more than you're used to with other drum sample programs, right? For kick, when the double bass was going, at least with this particular sample, it felt like the kick wasn't out of control or felt flabby. It just didn't feel tight. And this might be something you're not used to if you're using, you know, libraries that everything is like pretty much controlled, tight, taken care of. Just move the fader, maybe do an EQ for taste, and you're done. This one, definitely, like when double bass started happening, I felt like it was a bit too loose and it needed to tighten up. Okay, so I really like the way that sounds. And like I said, if I take this EQ off, you can hear some of those just woody, woofy type of frequencies here. And this big EQ move that I'm doing here is in relation to the bass guitar. So it's a notch to take out of the kick drum for the bass guitar to poke through. Oh, there's a punch for days. I mean, no problem. Snare, pretty similar. Just did a big old boost here. This was before I put in this API channel, this Lindell 50, which I am really starting to love. I've always been partial to API for my guitar sounds, but I'm really starting to use API and experiment for drums. And I might have to say at this point, I'm this close to saying that I'm an API guy, where it will replace SSL for me. I'm still experimenting. I'm on the fence, but I'm really liking it. Just doing a tad bit of compression, not a lot, just to tighten it a little bit more. It didn't feel like it needed a lot because I knew I was going to put on a bus compressor for the drum, so I wanted to not like over compress the shells. I'm a bit gun shy about doing that with drum samples because if you go just a little bit too much, you're going to choke them and it's going to sound horrible. So for toms, spinal fill right here. You can already tell how realistic they sound. If I take the EQ off, this looks way more like an EQ move that I would do on real drums. Taking a generous amount of 800 out, boosting a little bit up here, and then I am doing a compressor. 2 to 4 dB, and then a gate. Loving it. I just really enjoy this channel strip. It's great. I really like it. And that pretty much repeats itself for all the other toms. Nothing fantastic there. Cymbals, I'm just doing EQ, whatever. And actually this cut here is helping mute the cymbals a little bit without having to get back into the program and turn them down. And then drums, I have another channel strip here where I am making use of the well, the compressor here in the front. And then just doing a little bit of extra compression, about 2 dB there, and yeah, love it. Really enjoy that. Sounds so good. All right, so I think I've waddled enough in this video about how much I like the samples. Legitimately do like them. I will be using these because I do find them to be quite neutral, and I just like the way they sound. And I like how they react to compressors and EQ still, without being noticeable. And of course, I also like the fact that you really can't place them. You can't be like, ooh, that's Slate, or ooh, that's Easy Drummer, or oh, that's Superior Drummer. I think it's always going to be in a situation where, oh, they sound natural, oh, they sound good, and then you can tweak them based on compressing or EQ to fit them for whatever you're doing in the project. I really like that a lot. Big thumbs up to Jens Bogren. The IRs are amazing. Why would the drum samples be any different? They're amazing. Like I say, affiliate link down below. Pick them up, especially if you have a Slate Trick or 2 or Kontakt, and you really want to get some new sounds to make your songs sound a bit different and maybe stand out from the crowd a little bit. So absolutely recommend them 100%. I will be using these way more often than probably even I think right now. So yeah. That's gonna do it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit like, subscribe. It's a great way to support me. And let me know what you thought about these. Please leave a comment about them below. Did you get them? Do you have them? What do you think about them? All that good stuff. Have a good one, everyone. I'll see you in the next video. Later.